I'm kind of going to tell you a little bit about how I started and where I went and how I got where I am now. I started using in general, besides just heroin and everything, but like marijuana, drinking, everything. The first time I tried marijuana, I was 12. I remember I called my mom and had her come pick me up, and I was crying because I was scared because I had gotten high, and you don't do those things, you know? And, she didn't yell at me, she didn't scream at me, she didn't ground me, she didn't, she was like, okay, I'm glad you told me, don't do this again, we had a little anti-drug talk, and I did for a little bit. I listened, for about 5, 6, 7 months, and then I was 13, and I started smoking regularly. From there, I started drinking. I wasn't a beer person, so it went straight to hard liquor. I skipped right over the whole wine coolers, beer, Smirnoff, all that. I skipped all that. And then eventually, I started taking prescription drugs, Xanax, Clausen, Oxycontin, Vicodin, even Tylenol 3 sometimes because the codeine in it, if you had a little bit, it would go it was the most ridiculous thing, and I'd take stuff out of my cabinets, I wouldn't even know what they were. I wouldn't know if they'd get me high, but I just wanted to feel good because when I wasn't on something, I didn't feel normal. I wasn't a normal individual unless I was high. By 15, I was using heroin. I started off snorting it. I remember the first time I did it, I didn't like it. I was throwing up, I was passing out, I wasn't functioning, I couldn't remember what happened. I still to this day can't tell you what happened. Really, I just remember bits and pieces, and I woke up on the bathroom floor at a friend's house. And then from there, I didn't do that for a little bit, so I just stuck with everything I was used to, what I did, I'd black out every weekend, and then eventually it was every day. And then about a month or so later, I started using heroin on a daily basis. Started out in very small amounts. I remember, my first opiate was Oxycontin, and that got really expensive really fast. And that's when I turned to heroin, because at 15, where are you getting your money? You're asking your parents for money to go to the movies, rent movies, or get pizza, or go do this and go do that, go to school events for basketball games and stuff. They give you money for that, and then you don't go. And so I didn't have a job, I didn't have a good income, so I started using heroin because it's cheaper. I went from $30 hour or twos, trying to spend about $100 a day. Sometimes I pawned stuff, I stole stuff, to where I could spend $10 and I could get about the same thing. And within a few months, I was using every day. About 6, 7 months later, I became an IV drug user. I shared needles with people. I shared needles with people I knew had Hep C, HIV, everything like that. I knew they had it, and I didn't care because I needed to get my fix. And I needed to get to that level I wanted to be on. Luckily, I did not contract anything, and I'm truly grateful for that because that was a big possibility. But when you're using, you don't care. You don't care about anything. You resort to animal instinct. You do whatever you have to do to get what you need and make you feel good now. It's not later, it's now. Throughout high school, I partied, and I remember it was January 28th of 2011. I came to school under the influence, here at Waterloo, very heavily under the influence, and I decided it'd be okay to drive. I had a big group of kids in my car. We had all been using, we partied all night together, slept maybe 2 or 3 hours, woke up still all high and messed up, and I remember we decided it'd be okay to wake up really early after we'd gone to bed. We went to bed around 5, woke up at 6:30, 7 o'clock, hardly no sleep. And we decided to continue using, and to add alcohol on top of that, I came to school, I could barely walk, I was in a tank top, and it was the middle of January, and there was snow on the ground. I remember that, and that wasn't right. I was hot flashing, I was sweating, I was gross, and I remember I got called down to the office. I don't really remember walking down to the office, but I remember my purse being searched and not finding anything, but empty cigarette packs and lighters. And from there, I remember the ambulance coming and they did my vitals because they were just off somehow. I don't really remember how they were off, but they called the ambulance because they thought I was overdosing. And luckily I wasn't. The police were called. I almost got into a fight in the main office with a girl I came to school with over us getting caught and being down in the office. I remember shortly after that I did not get arrested, luckily. Shortly after that, my parents came to the school still in denial. Like, I remember my assistant principal had told me later after I got clean that my mom on the phone was like, there's no way, it's not Courtney. I was on color guard. I did Big Brothers Big Sisters. I was involved in some clubs here and there through school. I was in bands. I did all kinds of stuff. I showed up to school for the most part. I mean, my mom didn't like me missing school. Sometimes I'd call myself in because me and my mom sound a lot alike, so I was able to pull that off. I'd show up late a lot. I was heavily involved, and no one really realized that, someone who's doing all this is doing this, and it's not what you expect. It's not. Heroin addicts are no longer that junky, nasty, homeless aspect you think of someone sitting in an alley with a needle in their arm. It's not like that anymore. It's students, it's cheerleaders, it's football players, it's all kinds of people. And I know people that walk these halls now that are on it, and I know them because I was there with them at one point. Anyway, for my first expulsion, eventually, after I got home, I went through the whole mess of blacking out for 3 days at my parents' house. And then sometime the next week, we got a letter in the mail. I got expelled for my first time. It was a semester expulsion, so I did eventually get to come back. But throughout that period of time, my parents put me in an outpatient facility located in Belleville. I had a counselor that allowed me to get high, as long as I wasn't using my drug of choice, which was opiates. So as long as I could be doing Xanax, cocaine, whatever I wanted to do, as long as I wasn't doing that, because he did drug test us. But if we tested positive for any of that, he'd call POs, he'd call our parents. We just couldn't use our drug of choice. So I took a break from heroin for a little bit, but I did everything else I could. I'd show up to that group drunk. I started shooting up speed. I did all kinds of stuff. And, eventually I did find out after I got out of there, I did get fired and is no longer employed there. But that just fed into my addiction. And every week I had a piece of paper for my parents stating I was clean and I passed my drug test. So my parents thought I was fine. They had no idea. That fall, I came back to Waterloo High School. Made it through my first semester. I got really out of control again. I started using heroin again, and I got really out of control. It was worse than it was the first time I got expelled. And eventually I made it to my second semester, and January 30th of 2012, I went to my assistant principal, and I told her I wanted help. I told her I wanted to call my mom, and I needed help, and I didn't know how to tell my mom I wanted to go to rehab. Because I was, okay, I'm about to start crying, sorry guys. I was ready. I'd had a friend pass away the previous November. I'd had multiple other friends pass away. I was sick of hating myself, and hating my life, and hating everything I was doing. I got to the point that I was begging every day to die, because I was just hurting myself so much. And, that is an awful feeling. It's horrible. And, around November, I tried to clean myself up. I'd stop. I made the most I made it on my own was like a day and a half before I went running and getting high again. Because I couldn't sit through the withdrawal and the sick. It takes over. And, so my assistant principal and I called my mom. My mom came and picked me up from school. I was under the influence that day. I don't know whether or not my assistant principal knew. I have no idea if she knew. But I know my mom knew because she could tell by the way I was acting because we went out to lunch. And I couldn't even eat right. Like, I was sitting there passing out in my food at this restaurant. And I spilled tea all over the table because I kept knocking stuff over. And I wasn't right. And the next day, my mom didn't want me to come to school. I really wanted to because, I knew a little bit about, getting clean and all this. I'm just trying to basically bullshit my way through and lie and be like, I just want to say bye to all my old using people because I can't hang out with them when I get out and come back to school and blah, blah, blah. And, my mom let me come. That day, I ended up getting arrested for possession of heroin. I got my second expulsion, and I didn't get to graduate high school, which is something I was really looking forward to. I left for treatment. That was January 31st, 2012, and I left for treatment that night. My parents picked me up from the police station, took me to my mom's friend's place of work, and they put put me in the back room and I slept on that couch. I didn't know where I was at, what I was doing. I had no idea where I was when I woke up. I didn't know what time it was. But my parents were calling places and calling places. And the problem today with a lot of treatment centers is if you're not 18, they're not going to take you. That was the problem. I wasn't 18 yet. They wouldn't take me. They had open beds, but I wasn't 18, so they would not take me. It was exactly a week before my 18th birthday. Exactly a week. So my mom was calling places and trying to find somewhere. And around 9:30 that night, she found a place. And she woke me up and she's like, hey, we gotta go. They wouldn't let me go to the house to pack my bags. They wouldn't let me do anything. And my mom went home, or my dad went home, and he packed a pair of pajama pants, packed a pair of sweatpants, a pair of jeans, and 2 t-shirts. That's all I had when I left. And my parents took me and dropped me off in this place. I had no idea where I was. I had no idea. I woke up the next day, I was scared to death. I didn't know what city I was in, what state I was in. All I knew was my parents dropped me off at a rehab center and I wanted to go home. And I made it through that 28-day program. I was very happy when I left. I was really grateful to be clean. I didn't have to keep doing what I was doing to myself. And, I was happy. And when I came home, I stayed clean for 32 days. After I came home, which was a total of 60, and then on 61 days, I decided, hey, I'm clean, I'm cured, I'm going to go get high now, because I didn't have a problem, I wasn't an addict, I just couldn't do it on my own at first. And, I started using on a regular basis again, and I can say when I went back out, it was 10 times worse than it was when I stopped. It picks up right where it leaves off. And from there, I used for a little bit. I had like 2 or 3 days clean, and I go back to using. And then I had a couple more days clean, and I went back to using. And then finally, I had 18 days clean, because I told my mom, hey, I relapsed. I'm trying to detox, blah, blah, blah. She took my car keys, took my phone, I wasn't going anywhere, and because I wanted it, I stayed, because, I've had many people tell me, you can put us in jail, you can put us in rehab, you can do whatever, lock us up, whatever. If we don't want to get clean, but as soon as we get out, we're taking off. We're going to go, and we're going to go get one. And from there, I had 18 days clean, and my mom gave me back my car keys, gave me my phone. I work a 12-step program, and I went to one of my meetings. I had someone say something to me that I didn't like, and it made me mad, and I decided I was going to go get high one more time. Just one more time. And that one more time landed me in St. Elizabeth's Hospital. I went to the needle exchange in Belleville. You can go in there and you can pick up clean, free needles, water, cookers, tourniquets, whatever you need to get high. All you need to get is the drugs. And, I already had that, so I was there, and I was with a group of people that I had met in treatment that I didn't know for very long at all. And I got high in a gas station bathroom. I remember standing in the parking lot. I was walking in to put the key back, because, Moto Marts, you have to put the key back inside, and I fell off the curb, busted my head, and I got up like everything was fine, and I was going to drive. And I decided I couldn't drive, passed my keys off to my friend, and while I'm standing there, I opened the door, and I pushed my seat up, because I had a 2-door car, and I'm waiting for her boyfriend to get in the back, and I collapsed. And I have no idea what happened from there. I've seen both of these people. I have not seen the girl one time, and the other person, I've seen him twice. And, the one time, he was just like, are you okay? How have you been? Blah, blah, blah. And this is over 6 months later. And I was just like, we had hung out, we're friends. I was like, I can't associate with you anymore. You know what I mean? Because right now, he's in jail for attempted murder. This stuff, drugs take you crazy places. And, back to that, I woke up in St. Elizabeth's Hospital. I had overdosed. The people, luckily, they dropped me off. They stole my car. My phone was in my car. My wallet was in my car. They basically stole everything. Ended up getting pulled over later. My car got impounded. My mom had told me the last time that I relapsed that if I did it again, I wasn't allowed to come home. I was 18 now. They didn't have to put up with it anymore. It wasn't that they didn't love me, because they did. It's, I have a little brother, and I was exposing him to this, and, they wanted to protect him, because, that's the way I was taught. And I called them from the hospital. My mom hung up on me, and I sat there for I don't know how long crying, because I thought she wasn't going to come and get me. And I called her again about, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half later, and they were on their way. They were going to come get me. This was going to be it, but they were going to come get me. And they came and got me. And, I remember talking to my dad in the hospital room because my brother couldn't handle looking at me at that point because they had to get the IVs in and everything else, and my arms were covered in blood. I was just covered in blood. So he couldn't stand there and look at me and start crying. And, my mom was out there with him. I remember I looked at my dad and I was like, I want this, I really do, and I don't know why I can't do it. And, he was just like, I don't think you want it bad enough, is what he said, But, he wasn't trying to be hurtful, he was just telling me his opinion and what he thought. For me, that was my last use, and that was May 21st, 2012. My clean date is May 22nd, 2012. That was enough. I almost lost my life, not once but twice, because I was dead when I got to the hospital, and they brought me back and I died again, and they had to bring me back again. I almost didn't make it. I was almost not standing here or anywhere else, and I almost lost my family. Even if I died, I would have lost them, but, if I kept using, I would have lost them too. And I love my parents, and I love my little brother, I don't want to lose that, that you don't think about those things when you're getting high. You're just thinking of yourself. No one is important. Your love for people isn't important. How much people love you isn't important. And we don't realize that it's not just a me thing. It's a family disease. Thank you. It's a family disease, and this thing, it affects your whole family. What it took me dealing with, going through that experience right there to realize that, it's not just hurting me. It's hurting my mom. It's hurting my dad. It's hurting my brother. It's hurting everybody in my life that cares about me. And, the drugs tell you, and, that the people you're using when they care about you, they don't give two shits about you. People I was with, they dropped me off, left me, and stole my car. Is that love? Is that care right there? No, it's not. And I didn't care about them. I brought people in a heartbeat. I don't know how many people I robbed in my car. I'd sit there, take their phone, and help them look for it. You don't care. You're doing whatever you can. It's sick. And and we're not bad people. We're not. I don't consider myself bad. I consider myself a sick person trying to get better. And I'm clean now, and I've been clean for a while, but the thing is, though, it's still a process for me. Every day I work on it, and I do something to help me stay clean. I do one little thing, because if I don't do one thing to go forward, I'm taking 10 steps back. And that's really all I got. I don't know what else to say.
As I said, we have another young lady here that's experienced tragedy firsthand. Her spouse was found, I believe, at the gas station in Belleville. She's got a very important message.
Hi, my name is Crystal. Bear with me. I actually stood up and did this.
Can't hear your mouth.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
I'm Crystal, and I'm an addict. I'm currently struggling with disease and addiction of heroin. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about me, my story, and my husband. I grew up with a fairly normal childhood. I had a mom, dad, sister. I had experimented with weed early in high school. I also messed around with other drugs, such as acid, cocaine, crystal meth, and a variety of pills. I drank every now and then, but nothing in excess. I met my husband junior year in high school and nearly spent a day apart since.
It's okay. It's okay.
Take a breath.
I graduated high school successfully shortly after. I remember going on drunken coke binges at times, which we were able to keep it under control and never let it interfere with our bills or our lives for that matter. A few years after we moved in together, we had our first child, a beautiful little girl. Looking at that precious little baby girl made our partying days seem so irrelevant. Those kids were behind us. We were great parents. We worked full-time, and took care of our house and our baby. 3 years later, we had our second baby, another beautiful baby girl. And then 2 years later, we had our baby boy. He was actually born with cleft lip and palate, which is also something I have. And in the process of taking him to doctors, I had one of them tell me that he could also touch up my nose and my mouth a little bit. So I thought, well, yeah, let's do it. So my son, at 3 months old, had his first surgery of many, and myself, at 26 years old, had my last. I had been prescribed 1,000 milligram Percocets to take for close to 6 weeks. By that time, my nose had healed and I didn't need the medication anymore. My body did not, or my body did need it. I had accidentally became addicted to opiates without even realizing it. I felt forced to buy these painkillers on the street so I didn't feel sick. My husband had began taking them on a regular basis as well. That soon became very expensive and we found Oxycontin. We were able to crush these and snort them, and they went a lot further than Percocet and Vicodin. This went on for a while. A year after my son was born in our surgeries, we got married. At the beginning of our addiction, we were still able to manage our jobs, our bills, our children, and our lives. But that didn't last long. Shortly after our wedding, in a matter of months, we lost our house that we had lived in. It was our home that we had built our lives together with our 3 children. We still couldn't accept it that we had a problem with drugs. We stayed with my husband's parents for a few months until income tax time, when we were able to get out on our own again. That money ran out quick too. We would pawn our belongings and scrap metal when we could to make money. Eventually we were introduced to heroin. My entire life I knew heroin was the devil and I would never want anything with it. But now it seemed to save my life, is how it felt anyway. It was cheaper, went further, and kept us from being so sick. Being dope sick feels like you might actually die. We had started injecting the heroin through needles because, once again, it went further than snorting it. At this point, we had lost the last home we had ever known together, just 6 months after moving into it. We lost our children too. We gave them to our parents just until we could go to rehab and get clean. Well, that was 3 years ago. In that time, we couldn't hold a job. We manipulated doctors into getting Xanax, Valiums, and painkillers, which we would sell anyway to buy heroin. We lied, cheated, and stole from our friends and family. All of these years of doing the right thing had been thrown away. We hadn't had a stable place to live since then. We ruined relationships with good people. Once we became addicted to heroin, we became addicted to any kind of mind-altering substance. We couldn't have a casual drink anymore like we used to without overdoing it. If we couldn't get heroin, we would go on a crack binge or crystal meth binge or anything else that let me escape from reality. All of that ended on February 9th of last year. That was the day I overdosed for the first and only time from heroin. I got lucky and an angel found me and saved my life. My husband, on the other hand, was so lucky. He overdosed that same day and died. That was a huge wake-up call for me. Over a year later, and I'm still in somewhat denial over the reality of it. I stayed clean for a while after that. It It kills me to hear some of the things my children say and ask about Daddy. They have even gotten made fun of at school for what happened. I couldn't bear the thought of them knowing I died too. I can't let that happen, but my addiction has had so much control over me that I've still continued to use. Up until recently, when I came to my family again for help before it got out of control again. I don't want to die. My kids need their mother. I'm lucky enough to still have a handful of family and friends that support me. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. My addiction started with pain medication that I was legally and legitimately prescribed to today, almost 5 years later, a full-blown heroin addiction. I've lost houses, cars, jobs, all my belongings. I have 3 felonies, which is making it near impossible to find a job. I've been in jails and rehabs instead of in my children's lives. As clean and careful as I thought I was about it all, I still contracted pain. And one thing I lost, the most important one, is my husband. Thank you.
April just told me that this was Crystal's very first time to open up to Tom. Last but not least is Chris Duran. Again, Chris and her husband Billy, who's in the audience, experienced the death of a child. And her story is very, very common because as a parent, she notes that it blindsided them and they had no clue. So after Chris is done, I would like to open it up for any questions. And Chief Deputy Bob will get into the audience with a microphone, and the panel will answer however you direct it. Chris?
Hi, guys. My name is Chris. First, I'd like to thank all you guys for coming, everyone here tonight, and especially for giving me the opportunity to be the one to speak to you guys. And all who work so hard to make all this possible. I've been wanting to talk. Scream from the mountaintops and talk to you guys. I've spoken at a few schools before and a few forums, but I just wrote this on the way here and here. It's not the same speech that I usually use. But I'm going to cut to the chase here. On November 19th, 2011, I lost my son, Brandon. And as shocking as this was, the reason was even more shocking to me, and the reason was heroin intoxication. This day my baby left me, I left me. And I'm forever changed. I will never be the same without my baby. But just before I go any further, I just want to apologize beforehand. If I seem to be out of sorts, I'm emotional, but not this emotional. I've had a very rough week. I had one of my son's friends come by the beginning of the week. He ended up dying 3 times, but he was shot. Then he tells me that his father had stage 4 cancer. And he actually was my son's age at like 7 or 8, and he had an older brother that was 23 that passed away. So, you know, he's dealt with an older brother that passed away. He just got shot. He showed me the stomach. It was bad. Then he tells me, I need you. And he was there to ask me why. He said, Chris, you know, my dad, he made it through losing a child. And he dealt with me. And beat stage 4 cancer. Two things that, you know, some people don't, well, you don't beat stage 4 cancer, but losing a child, and now looking back, since I've lost Brandon, and the look in that man's face, I totally get it now. So he tells me that, and then, on top of trying to live this whole new life, another thing was dropped in my lap. One of Brandon's other friends had called me, and her father was in the hospital due to his heroin use over a period of years. So then Friday, we get a phone call that my husband's best friend is gone. So we go to his parents, and then we come home, and this Brandon's friend messages me and says that her father lost his battle to heroin. He had been in the hospital a few days. And if that's not bad enough, later on Friday night, I get a phone call that my friend's husband was killed in a car wreck. So I really don't want to be here, but I have to be here for you guys. I'm sure a lot of you here tonight knew both men. The funerals were last night at the same place and the same time. This was very draining for me. It took me 2 hours to make it to the door. I mean, I had to deal with that since my son passed away. Not only because of this. So, I'm sorry you guys, just bear with me. It was very draining for me. It took me 2 hours to get to the door. And a lot of people from our community are suffering from this because these two guys were great people. But you guys aren't suffering just because of what happened in our community. You guys are also suffering from something else. And this thing's really powerful, and it doesn't have any boundaries. This thing's taken our children, and it's taken parents away from their children. Something so powerful that it takes you and it controls you. It controls your mind. It possesses you, and it makes you forget your morals and how you were raised. And what I'm talking about here is this demon they call heroin, the demon that took my son. I'm sure everyone out here has lost someone that they love dearly, but losing a child you go, oh my God, that you gave birth to, you had high hopes and dreams for, is way different from losing a parent, sibling, or a friend. Some people think that I was lucky to have had Brandon for 22 years. I'm not lucky, because I haven't even come to terms yet as to why I had to lose Brandon at all. And to people like that, I ask, you know, what age would you choose for your child to die? And I'm not really trying to be mean, I'm really not. But that's just how awful a loss like this is. I've been married for 25 years and I have 2 other children, but Brandon was my little child. Brandon went to Red Bud High School and he went to Beck. He was my fearless child. He was an amazing artist, an amazing writer. He played guitar and he loved skateboarding. He would go to the skate park in Red Bud and all the young kids would flock around him and they'd watch him skate. He was a natural at everything he did. He was so amazing and so talented, and everyone loved my son. Brandon started hanging around kids that I didn't know, like from Beck, all different kids. So one thing I really want to stress to you guys, please pay attention to your children, and please pay attention to who your children are hanging out with. Because I thought I was. I call Brandon my hippie child. He should have been born in the 60s because he loved Hendrix, Grateful Dead, and all that music. He was such a free spirit, and he called himself a dreamer. Brandon had done drugs from the age of 17 to 18 until he left me. But that and Xanax, Vicodin, mushrooms, ecstasy, stuff like that. When you turn 20, he moved to Belleville with some friends, and it turns out that that would be the worst mistake of his life, because that's when he was introduced to heroin. I only know this because of a letter I found after he passed that he wrote in rehab. And he stated that he'd snorted it on and off for 3 weeks. And when taking one of his friend's girlfriends to work, she shot him up for the first time. In his letter, he says that he loved it, and it became his real true love. Do you know how that makes me feel when I read that he loved that? Loved it more than me, his mom? Oh my gosh. But that's how powerful this drug is. It really is. Brandon goes on to say that after that, it had me and I was hooked, and it took over my life. He moved back home and he had a couple overdoses that year, and we had numerous interventions. Corner him at the doctor's office, at home, both sides of our family. He would tell us he doesn't have a problem, you guys are crazy, therefore, that was out of the question at the time. I, at this point, still didn't know about his heroin use, only from the letter after the fact. But over the next few months, I noticed him not sleeping, dark circles under his eyes, very easily aggravated, sweating a lot, losing weight, and started to care less and less about what he looked like. My husband had confronted him one day, made him pull up his sleeves, and he admitted to what he was doing. I really couldn't believe it. There was my son standing in front of me. He was crying so hard, and he would say that he was scared, and that he didn't have anything in life anymore. And he said they didn't have any friends, and he's disappointed me and his dad. And he was embarrassed, and he was ashamed. And I just held him and we cried. And I told him that everything was going to be okay. At the time, I didn't know, but it wasn't going to be okay. And then I remember asking myself, how did this happen? How did I not know? How did I let this demon slip right under my radar and rob me of my precious son? Overnight, my child was not mine anymore. He was his. His bright, beautiful eyes turned into angry stares. No more laughing, no more beautiful smiles, only depression. But he promised me never to do it again. I'm not going to do it again, Mom. Still never sunk in. Think you're not going to do it again? He's not going to do it again. It never sunk into me. Brandon was never disrespectful to me. I never had a check missing out of the back of my checkbook. Whatever. I never had to go to pawn shops to retrieve my family heirlooms. Anyone come to me saying that Brandon had taken anything from him. Isn't that what your typical heroin addict does? They lie, cheat, and steal. I'm not saying that he didn't. I'm sure he did. I'm not sugarcoating that. Brandon had returned home from a friend's funeral on April 12th, and he passed away from a heroin overdose. And Brandon was out in the front yard. That night, he was so out of control. He screamed at the top of his lungs. And he's saying, "Why, Mom? Why, Mom? Why him? Why not me?" And that's how my kid was. He really meant it. He said, he had kids. What do I have? Why was it him? Why couldn't it have been me? But he was really out of control. And so he went down the street to a friend's house, and I've never had to do this before, but I went through his book bag. And what I found shocked me. I found a baggie with needles and cotton balls and another baggie with white powder in it. Here it was, literally in my face. My son was still shooting heroin. We confronted him the next day, and finally he wanted to change. He didn't want to be this person that he had become. He was so angry that something came along that was bigger, better, and stronger than he was. Something that he couldn't be on his own. So we went to rehab at the end of May, and he completed 40 days. He was so proud when he got out. He showed everyone his coins that he received. He started hanging back out with the friends that he'd lost, and I thought he was doing great. I really did. I was so proud of him. He looked awesome. He gained weight, hanging out with his friends, and then on the date, November 19th, Brandon went to a nightclub with a friend, but he left with somebody else. And he went over to a motel on North Kings Highway, and they used, but they left him. And then, because of warrants, because of probation, because I had no attachment to my child whatsoever, and they were more worried about not getting in trouble or going to jail. So, they actually tried to call a man from my son's phone 3 doors down. He was in the hotel to go check on Brandon. 16 calls they called this man 3 doors down to go check on my my child. He was sleeping, so he couldn't go check on my child. When he finally did, he opened up the door for this man dragging my son's lifeless body down the stairs to that hotel. And this man called 911. Okay, let's get through this. So, I just want to let you parents know, a lot of people do not know that in Illinois we have a 911. I have a poster over here. I put that on my car. They just want you in Illinois to save a life. If you're on probation, in trouble, if you have drugs there. Okay, I don't even know, do you guys know, I mean, there's a minimal amount, I mean, you have to have a lot. Like at a regular party, you're not going to have.
It's 3 grams.
But you have to tell your children, please, if they are at a party, to call and save that life. Because we want the life to be saved. And we're willing to grant immunity to save that life. But for the first few months, I couldn't tell anyone how my son died because it made me feel dirty. It made me feel like a failure as a parent, and it made me feel disgusting. Everyone's stereotype of a typical user is someone like in a poverty area pushing a grocery cart in a dark alley, all ratty looking. I don't blame people for thinking this way. I thought this way too until it happened to me. I can tell people now how my son died because I guess you can say that I'm now educated on this drug. How great, huh? And the power it possesses. Before, like most of you, the thought of needing to never crossed my mind. I don't care whether you're rich or poor. And my son knew the dangers of what he was doing. And my baby screwed up. And because he screwed up, it cost him his life. But that doesn't mean that he should never be forgotten or stereotyped as a drug addict. I put the blame on Brandon, just not solely. Because I believe a phone call could have saved his life. I know a phone call could have saved his life. My baby is missed by so many. I have over 600 signatures in his guest book, and people waited almost 3.5 hours, 4 hours to see him. I miss him so much. I'm not over it. It's just been a little over a year, and I'm never going to be over it. I will miss Brandon until the day I die too. Everything reminds me of him. A song, a place, everyday events. And I just wish this would have never happened and I had my baby back. I know a lot of people were hurting, but I was Brandon's mom. And Brandon's mom is in so much pain and it's killing her. And every day for the rest of my life, I will be reminded of this. Not because that I was his mom, not because that I love this boy with all my heart, but every day for the rest of my life, I have to get up every morning and see this tied up box in my living room, knowing that inside that box is my child that is sick, you guys. I am here because even if I know you or I don't know you, I really do care about you guys. I just don't want anybody to go through the pain that I am going through and what this has caused our family and everything. You know, I don't have nothing to gain by being here. I've only suffered a huge loss. I don't ask my name to be in the paper or anything like that. I just ask if you tell my son's story to remember his name. My child's gone and he's never coming home. So to me, this is a huge loss. And it'll never be, there will never be a day, ever, that I will take credit for anything I have to do with heroin or raising awareness or telling my son's story. Heroin took my son from me. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. I'd rather be somewhere else than speaking here tonight to you guys about the son that I no longer have, and the reason why it isn't for me. Because it just drudges up more pain, and I cry all the way home and everything. But even though a piece of my heart's missing, I still care. I've tried getting in school, nobody wants to listen. I guess they just don't want to associate heroin with the schools, and I get that. if it wasn't here, but it's here. And that's a fact. So, just don't ever say that this won't happen to you, because it happened to us. We couldn't believe it either. So parents, I just want you to be thankful, because your child is a precious gift. And be grateful that they're here, and you get to see them, and you get to hold them every day. Unfortunately, heroin robbed me of my son's future, and what I wouldn't give to be able to hold my baby just one more time. So I just want you guys to do me a favor, and I just want you to go home, just give your kids a big hug, and just tell them how much you love them, and how much you believe in them. They need you. Okay? Just be aware. Thank you guys.
At this time, Bob, are you out there? Yeah. Okay. Just raise your hand if you have a question and see if we can answer or help. Again, I know that we've got pamphlets and everything outside, and I know April's going to be wandering around for those that would like to hear more about the support groups that are around this area. For those families that are maybe experiencing anything in their lives at this time. Go ahead, Bob.
My name's Ralph Max, and Courtney, I want you to look at me. I'm right here. I'm right here.
There you go. Thank you.
I just want you to know I am so proud of you, and you're right, you're not a bad person. It's just an addiction. I just want you to know I'm going to be praying for you, and I just love you to death. I'm so sorry that drugs was that easy for you to find in here and get started on. But my thing is, I shared this last year for a few minutes. I spent a lot of time in Forest Park at the drug and rehab for the men over there. And I've noticed a big difference just from this last year that the age group is with heroin and meth over there is like, it used to be like in the late 20s on up, but now it's like there's a lot of just 18-year-old kids over there that their lives are just destroyed from the drugs and everything. But my question is what age group? And it was actually 12, I think you said, roughly, when you started?
The first time I tried anything was age 12, and then at 13 is when I really got going, using on a regular basis.
Okay.
Heroin started at 15.
And my question is, for anybody that wants to answer it, is like I was asking, what age group are you finding the drugs in our schools, and what can we do in this community? I know I've had enough of watching our kids be destroyed with these drugs. What can we do to make this aware? We have a lot of stuff like the neighborhood watch things that we have.
The ages that we're finding, reaching these children, they're starting as some of them as young as maybe 11, 12, 13 years old. Youngest death that I've been aware of so far is a 14-year-old child, little girl, and a 15-year-old little boy. So, I mean, it's starting very, very young. What you can do is look for the signs for it. Start, like Chris said, watch your children all the time. If you do believe your child is on drugs, I don't care if it's marijuana, whatever it may be, get your child into treatment. If the child is over 18, they'll have to get themselves in. We've been working with a great treatment center in Quincy, Illinois. It's called Recovery Resources, and it's an awesome place. You send them 4 hours away. They cannot walk out of the center. They have no choice but to get clean, and then you bring them back home. And that's all you can do. You start again, watching your child, make them go to AA meetings, counseling, any kind of youth group, get them involved in the community, and just keep an eye on them. You know, that's basically all you can do is watch your children. Look for needle marks, the dark circles under the eyes. Look for the little, them being stoked on me, red eyes. You know, there's all kinds of symptoms and signs to each of these drugs that the kids can be on. So watch them for any kind of drug. And if you do believe they are on drugs, get them help, counseling, treatment, whether it's an NA meeting, AA meeting, whatever you can give them.
Hi, my name's Carl Ferry. I'm working at the Walmart pharmacy. I talk to Dr. Pickett all the time. We are here. Where they go, they come to us. My question is with regards to clean needles, which I know it's a law in Illinois that we are allowed to sell needles, but then it seems like I'm facilitating this problem in some way, but the law says I must provide clean needles because we want to prevent hepatitis, HIV transmission, but I don't have a recourse to where do I stop this? How do I say I'm not going to sell to this person because I think can't profile, but this person.
Do you notice the same people?
Yes, like a regular.
So, I mean, you kind of can, like, he's doing a lot, but he's not getting his diabetes.
Yeah, nobody buys any insulin or any diabetic supplies, but I sell 10-pack needles to this one and this one and this one, and it's a regular group of people, which we do follow procedures, writing it on a list that we take driver's license, but never seeing anybody ever buy insulin or diabetic supplies, we can't help but think this is what we're doing. But I'm not so, again, I'm worried about people's health individually, but then they're on the roads with our families, our children, other people in the public, which I'm now giving them an option. So to me, it feels like, am I buying liquor for a minor and giving it to a minor? Am I buying tobacco? It just feels like we're facilitating or enabling, but I'm also trying to protect their health and
And I agree with you. Bethany Peace Needle Exchange that's in Belleville, where Courtney had OD'd, and Crystal's husband, Eric Irvin, he also OD'd at the Motormark gas station on Main Street in Belleville, Illinois, after leaving and getting the needles. I'm a recovering addict, and my theory is on the needle exchange and giving the needles out, yes, it's great to save people from AIDS, and it's great to save them from hepatitis C and things like that, like Crystal has a Hep C now. But if you hear Crystal's story, Crystal was going to the Bethany Peace Needle Exchange. She was getting needles. She still has a hepatitis C. So what is the purpose of these places? I mean, other than the needle exchange especially, they'll give you the cooker, the tie-off, the alcohol swab, the cooker to make it in. They give you everything that they're
It's more possible for them to.
Right, so in my state that I live in today, Illinois is my home state, but I'm a Missouri resident and have been for 20 years, we don't give needles out. You don't have a place to go get your needles, okay? You can get your needles as long as you have a prescription along with your insulin or whatever else they may give you that you need a needle for. Other than that, you're not getting a needle in the state of Missouri. So Illinois' laws, I've talked to Brendan Kelly in St. Clair County about the Bethany Peace Needle Exchange. We spoke on how possibly getting it out of Belleville. He didn't get back with me, and the next thing I seen, it was in the newspaper, and they were trying to shut it down. So I think as an addict, if you catch HIV or Hep C, that is a consequence of your addiction, just like losing your job, your felony 3 times over, like Crystal.
Do you buy needles separately, or do they buy them in a pack?
we can sell up to 20 at a time,
Like how much would that cost them?
like $1.30. They're
So my
11
thing
cents.
is, if you can buy the heroin for whatever,
For
you're
$5.
Yeah.
A pack of needles for $1.10, so you can die for $6.10. Yeah, I don't agree with needles being given out in this state, not at all, not at all. So, I mean, I don't think we should give them access to be able to get high. We need to make it as hard as possible on these people. And I see the HIV and the hepatitis C being a problem years ago, and this needle stuff started in this state to stop the HIV spread. Well, sadly, did they know that the heroin epidemic was going to come back in full force? They sweep across our Metro East area to where you're not worried about HIV anymore with the needles that you're giving out. You're worried about somebody falling out in the bathroom right down the street from where they just got the needle from. So, you know,
it's just everything is such a gray area. What happened to my son is a crime in Illinois, but it's not in Missouri. So.
I know we're about 2 hours into this. We are going to be out and about, milling in the lobby area. Again, there's questionnaires out front there. If you would, put down any comments that you have or any other suggestions, like what would you like to see. Do you think this panel was good as far as information? It's kind of difficult to know how much information that people out in the community are wanting to hear. hear from those that are actually out in the field seeing what's coming across. But to the Walmart gentleman in the pharmacy, would you be interested in sitting down with local dialogue with some of our officials as to better communication and seeing exactly what you're seeing?
Yeah, I'm in communication with the local officers all the time.
Okay.
Several are here tonight. I've inquired with Sheriff Kelly. Every time I have a chance to talk about that needle issue, I bring it up to anybody who listens. I have somebody who is a representative from Stuckey Township, and he's tried to talk to other legislatures also, just to try to push that up the line. We're just trying to know where we have a voice to say, I don't want to participate in a drug issue where we don't want to keep someone, there could be someone out of town needing needles for insulin for grandma or aunt somebody, and that's legitimate. But like I said, if we have a regular group of people every couple of days, it does show a signal. So
you don't want to be an enabler to what you know is going to be illegal.
Yeah, and then it comes back to us not using good professional judgment, and we caused an unfortunate accident or an overdose.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll talk to anybody.
So noted.
Vicki?
Yes.
I want to say, I think it's great that Doc Bennett showed up here and is on the panel and he's involved.
And I agree. One of the first physicians to talk about what's coming across their office, their desk, and what they're seeing.
It took a lot of work to get here, you guys, so.
It did. Thank you very much.
Right, yes.
If you have questions, come on up and we'll try to get you as best as we can.
I just kind of want to ask you, like some of the Waterloo people, and I don't know this, but I'm going to ask you guys, there's a few of you here, but I mean, obviously your town can't be in denial if you're having deaths from this. So then what is it? Is it that people, it didn't happen to them, so they're not concerned about? I mean, I just want to know. I don't get it. I mean, someone...
I'd say denial.
Is it really denial?
Denial.
But how... That's what I said. I spoke to Belleville West, and it was like 20-something people. I can't believe
But
it.
I can tell you this, I went to school from kindergarten to high school in Waterloo, and heroin was not in the school then. I know that.
Well, you don't want to associate that with your town or, whatever, and I get that. But when it's something that's killing your children, I mean, you need to be aware of it and need to know.
I think Chief Transom touched on this. The problem is, okay, so we know it's here, we see it, we see the changes in our kids, we see the expulsions coming from school, I see it coming across my office, but we got to be able to prove it in court, to make the charges stick, and to make an example of every pill, piffin pusher that comes through and sells and winds up with somebody's life on their hands. And I know that it's very difficult. I've spoken with a lot of detectives and a lot of DEA agents, and that's the hard part. And Chief, I don't know if you can elaborate anymore. That's the hard part of, unless they're right there and you get a confession, or there's a witness that rolls on them, it's very difficult to prosecute these people. Am I right? You want to say something?
Yeah, I'm Misty Langa. My son Shane came to me like 4 years ago, and he had said there's a lot of drugs going on. And you get to that point where you're not sure what to do with that kind of information, especially being young. Is there a way that we can set suggestion boxes of what we think, just so, not just the 911, but it's a hard step for a kid to step forward, and it's hard enough to walk up to your parent and say, this is what I see.
Or tell on somebody. They don't want to do that.
Yeah, well, and so if you just put a note out there, at least it would allow you, the people in charge of the town, to take another look. It doesn't mean you can
have it anonymous.
Yeah, it's anonymous, but it would have to be checked out, but it would be a chance for that kid got to step forward and say what he felt at that time. Like now, I feel really bad after hearing these stories and hearing this, that 4 years ago, he felt that.